there was no minute hesitation holding hands, or no minute hesitation on what I'm wearing or what I'm doing or how I'm acting or how I'm speaking, or all that was taken away. And it was just, so you don't realise that you hold all that on you until you get it all taken away, kind of thing.
Hey friends, welcome back to the channel, to Tech Club, the ongoing series where I review.
This is the Globetrotter Guys, a dynamic duo who share their love for travel and adventure. Today, we chat with one half of the duo, Sion, about his influencer journey.
Hello and welcome back to the Digital Voices podcast, creator behind the influence. I am Jenny Quigley-Jones, the CEO of Digital Voices. And today I am here with Sion, half of the Globetrotter Guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you have an audience of like 123,000 people across like TikTok, Instagram. You have a blog and you do some YouTube as well.
Trying to.
Yeah. I mean, YouTube's a hard one. But how does having 123,500 people watching your relationship make you feel?
Do you know what? I never actually thought about it quite like that. I think I just get so lost in the work of it and all. I don't really look into the numbers and think of that as eyes on us. I just think about, oh, that video's done well, or that's done well. But yeah, maybe there is some pressure there then, subconsciously, because I do know people are watching us, so I am always going to put our best foot forward and think about how we look. So it doesn't scare me, but maybe there is something there to think about more. Maybe you've just sort of plucked at a string and now I'm going to really think about it.
Like they were just numbers.
Yeah, they were just numbers before, and now they realise.
That's like more people than Wembley Stadium who actually actively follow you. That's not even just like watching.
That's a lot of people. But I mean, I think I don't really focus on them looking at our relationship. I sort of focus on them looking at us as just LGBTQ people with a purpose. And I think my main focus on is putting a positive message out there. And, you know, we do get messages of people saying, it was great to see you doing this, just the basic stuff. Like, it's great to see you holding hands and things like that. So really, when I think about those eyes on us, it only really feels positive because that is the overwhelming message that we get.
Yeah, I was watching your like holding hands video and it's got like 4,000 comments.
Yeah, that went viral, and it just sort of shows how something so simple to perhaps a lot of people, and a lot of people take for granted, can't be taken for granted by ourselves and the majority of our audience, because holding hands is dangerous. It can be, quite simply. We're constantly on alert of, can we hold our hands on this road or this destination or this place? And that really resonated with so many people, and that's why the comments went wild. And what was quite interesting in the comments, Instagram, obviously, you know, how it pushes it to a certain audience. It suddenly pushed it to mums of LGBTQ children, because we got a surge of comments from mums saying how worried they were for their children. So just that really had a big impact, them reading them, and like for them, I think it gave them a bit of hope that the children were going to be okay, but it also gave them fear because that is the reality.
Yeah, and you mentioned in the comments having like a bottle thrown at you in Manchester.
Yeah. But I mean, I say yeah, like it's nothing.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's to be expected. I know that I can't just walk around as a couple everywhere and not get something. Something's going to happen eventually somewhere. So it didn't necessarily surprise me, but it wasn't good, of course.
I mean, there's so much I want to delve into there, like in terms of living with a constant like existential threat and choosing to live so publicly.
Yeah.
As a gay couple, is there a symbol or something you want people to take away after seeing your content that kind of links to that? Or
I think after seeing that kind of content, it depends who that is directed at. So if people see that kind of content and they're not from the LGBTQ community, I want them to take away from it that actually these issues exist, and, you know, be aware of them and support where you can, and don't take it for granted. Because there's so many people that I've had said to me, oh, everything's fine now, isn't it? you've got all the rights. There's never any problems, never any bother. And I'm like, so if they can see that and they can read the caption and understand it a bit better, that's a win in my eyes. And on the flip side, if they are like an LGBTQ follower themselves, then it might be something they've never seen in their bubble or their world where they live, potentially, depending where they're from. So that can give them maybe a little bit of a boost, a bit of hope that it is possible. Difficult, but possible. Like, I never want to make out everything's easy, because it's not.
That's great. How would you, just in a sentence, describe your content to like someone who has never seen it before?
So I would say fun, light-hearted, because I don't want to take myself too seriously. Fun, light-hearted, helpful, and gay. Very gay. Very, very gay.
Yeah, 'cause it started with mainly travel, and now
Yeah.
you've moved on to like a whole host of other topics. You've added comedy in there, you've added kind of more personal touches. How did that evolution happen, and why did you?
So it is predominantly an LGBTQ travel blog, and it still stays that way. But I think because of how long it's been going, so like 6 and a bit years now, and we've had parts of that journey, say COVID, where we couldn't travel, there's been natural points where we've had to pivot and think about what else we might want to share. And I think because it's been going for 6 years, people aren't just interested in travel, they are now maybe a little bit more interested in us as people. So we have then thought about, well, what other aspects of our life do people potentially could be interested in? And that's why we have widened it, because we do have other interests. We love travel to bits, and that is still the core of everything. But when we're traveling, we're still, wearing stuff, and people are messaging, where is this outfit from, and so on. So, and like I said before, I quite like the transition content. So, I love to do that as well. So it just kind of came a natural progression with people perhaps getting to know us better as people and buying into, while the travel's still important, maybe like buying into us as people, and not just they're coming exclusively for travel.
And how did you make the decision to start 6.5? Did you plan together that it would be something you did full time?
No, so this is always a funny one, because Ben just thought I was being stupid. He was like, "What are you doing?" Because we'd planned to quit our jobs, take all our money, and just go on a one-way flight and see how long we could go for. At least 2 years. That was the intention.
That's amazing.
It's just, we do dramatic things like that. We did it in 2011 as well, but that was before I even had a smartphone. So in 2011, we did the whole quit the jobs, go to Australia, work there for a bit, spend time in Asia, and then come home and start again. And then 2018 again, quit everything, go. But as we were preparing to go, I had seen that these sort of travel blogs do exist, and I had seen other examples of gay ones. I'm very much of the mindset, if somebody else can do something, so can I.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying about seeing London Marathon yesterday. I'm like, I can do it now. I've seen people do it. So I just learned how to create a website, came up with a name, learned how to set up social media profiles, and did all that just before we went. And then just kept on learning. And I think Ben just thought I was a bit silly. He was like, "Really, you want to do this?" Like, okay, I think he entertained me to start with.
Yeah.
And then suddenly 6 months in, we got an email from Celebrity Cruises asking if they could fly us. We were in South America at the time, asking if they could fly us back from South America to do a 10-day cruise with them to promote their Pride at Sea. And then we were like absolutely bouncing around the room. I'm like, oh, this is a real thing. This is legit. And I think, that's when we really started taking it seriously then. But initially it was just, let's have a go and see.
And did you just learn to edit from scratch? Did you ever edit it before?
No. So my background was in physics and then chartered accountancy. So then I just self-taught website development, social media, editing, photography, everything that people see. I've just self-taught it.
Where did you learn it? You just YouTube?
Just having a go. I just have a go at things. So I just I do all my editing in CapCut.
Yeah.
for all the videos, all the content that you see on Instagram and TikTok is all done in CapCut. And yeah, I'll just play around until I figure it out. And if I want to do something specific, I'll just look it up.
And so did you start seeing people like following you from the moment you started the channel? Because for Celebrity Cruises to get in touch 6 months in, that must have been like, you must have had like some of an audience.
I think we had at that point about 10,000, maybe 6 months in. And then the growth has been as chaotic as the Instagram algorithm is. You know, sometimes it's like really growing, sometimes it's stagnating. But now it's grown a decent amount.
Yeah. And you both, this is still full-time?
So it was full-time as of January last year. So we were, like most people do, having to do multiple jobs to keep ourselves financially supported, and then saved up a certain amount in the bank as a buffer, and then went self-employed last January and just took the risk because it was getting to the point where I could not do 2 jobs at once.
Especially one involving travel.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I need another couple of weeks off for this brand deal. It's like,
yeah. Oh yeah, I'd taken all my annual leave. I'd bought annual leave. I had started requesting unpaid leave. I was moving the bank holidays around. I think people were starting to get annoyed at me.
Also, it's because like they know where you're going. They're probably really jealous in the office.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. And so how do you decide then like what's personal for you and what goes on the channel? Like, because it must be an interesting negotiation.
Yeah, so this is actually a discussion we're having more now in our second year, because last year was our first year of being self-employed. So I was in full-on panic mode, going hell for leather on, I must share everything, I can't do enough content, I have to say yes to every opportunity under the sun. And we completely burnt out maybe 3 times last year as a result, because I was like, I've just given up an entire salary, I need to make this work. So coming into our second year, we are now thinking what's realistic and how much is to share, because those lines are really blurred. You know, if we're just sitting on the sofa watching something on TV, we should be able to do that. But it's hard for me to not think, maybe we should share what we're watching, because people might also be watching it and they might be interested and they might like have a chat about it and it might be engaging and people are interested in that. And it's just, there's no clear boundaries at the moment, but it's something that we need to work on.
Yeah. Were there any moments where you decided to set the boundaries? Was there anything in particular where you were like, I can't do this? Was it the burnout? Was it realizing you're watching TV like, let's make content?
Yeah.
Like what was the impetus for that?
I think it was just the burnouts towards the end of last year that have kind of made us think about it more and be a bit more mindful of it. But we haven't really decided on that yet, because Q1 is always so quiet. I'm still in panic mode. Q2 for us, like leading up to Pride Month, that is our busy season, and that's when I can start to relax and think, do you know what? We've got some jobs in the pipeline, things are looking good. But January, February, March are like a ghost town for work. So I'm still currently in panic mode, which reduces my ability to set boundaries and stop working and stop making content.
That makes sense. It's funny because I really relate to people who talk about their personal/business life as Q1 and Q2. I'm like, I understand Q1 is quiet.
Yeah.
And you're like, everyone else is like, oh, you mean Jan, Feb, March?
Yeah.
I can tell that it's interesting. You're approaching it from a very, I think because you have this corporate background, you approach it in a very kind of business-minded way.
Yeah, I do. Sometimes when I'm on calls with my agent, I'm like, I'm in business mode now, so I'm not being like harsh, but because I have to be in business mode. It is my business and it needs to be successful. So yeah, I've definitely taken elements from my old career into that. And Ben has been in travel since he was 18. His first job was an apprentice at Going Places, if you remember Going Places. And he's always been in travel, Going Places, Thomas Cook, STA Travel. So he's really, really good on that side of things, and then I'm very good on the business side of things.
You can file your taxes. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. Literally.
So how do you, I mean, it's also must be really tough to balance having like a personal mission with the channel that's very kind of ethically driven with the business side.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel pressure to say you're looking at which brands to work with, do you ever feel pressure to take a brand deal that actually you don't want to because there's a clash between the ethics and the business?
I would. I've not actually been in that position yet. But for any brands that come to us or we go to them, I have to do my due diligence. So that means I'm looking at what they've done in the past. But also, if they've not done anything in the past, it doesn't mean they're written off. I want to have a conversation with them and ask why they're doing it, what are their intentions, what are their plans, and seeing if I feel it's genuine. Because it's got to start somewhere, and not every brand's got an amazing history. So there is a bit of nuance to it, but that's why I really like to be able to meet my clients face-to-face, or at least on a Zoom call, and get that understanding from them about why they're doing this. Because if they are just jumping on the pride bandwagon and wanting to tick it off, it's not a good look for them, it's not a good look for us, it's just not ideal.
Yeah, well, because that's the thing, you've got your brand to consider, and if you say yes to opportunities that have backlash on you, and the Globetrotter Guys,
it's not good. It would just hinder us in the future, and it wouldn't feel right. And then you can't be, because obviously when you're creating the content, you have to be passionate about it. Otherwise, it just falls flat, and people can see through that, I think.
Are brands open to having those discussions with you?
Yeah, I think so. Well, the good ones are anyway. So, I mean, I can give examples. Like, we're working with Nissan at the moment, and they are heavily involved with a third company called Pride 365 that is helping them internally and externally make sure that all their activities are in support year-round of the LGBTQ community. So knowing that, I was like wanting to work with them then, because I could already see them doing the right thing. And then when I've spoken to their representative, asking her questions, like, I feel like we're so on the same page with what she wants to achieve and the reasons that she wants to do these activations. So in that scenario, I'm like, yeah, this is solid, this is good. And then other brands like Barefoot Wine, for example, that's a good example of a brand that has done stuff for years. Like, going back to, I always remember the date because my year of birth, 1989 was their first thing they did to support the LGBTQ community, and they've been doing yearly stuff ever since.
I didn't realise they had that much heritage. That's awesome.
So like, when we're sharing content, that's like, I want to be able to say those things for people to know, because I would never have known otherwise. And it makes me feel like, okay, this is a brand that I stand behind, because they're not just doing lip service, they're doing something, tangible and deep.
I think people also don't think about creators and influencers having the level of integrity and interrogation that you do with your brand deals. And I wish people considered that more, because you probably have thousands of emails in your inbox that
are to be deleted.
Or you wouldn't work with. But it's like you put that much consideration into it because you want to grow something you're proud of as well.
Well, yeah, and it's just, I don't know, I find those videos where creators have got a product or are doing something, and you just know it's not what they would legitimately use or talk about. It's just, it doesn't sit well.
My favourite is when they sell t-shirts during Pride that are go to this company and a portion of the profits goes to an LGBTQ plus charity, and you're like, a portion of the profits. So basically you've got to go and buy a t-shirt that's unsustainably produced. I often think it should be all the profits or not.
Yeah, I mean, there's some that just don't do it at all. And definitely I want to see that element of some sort of charity involvement because, so many just stick a rainbow on, take the money and don't give it any more thought. And that's, again, not a good look.
What type of content, out of all the content you make, what do you find most fulfilling to create personally?
Exciting and adventurous travel content that people can actually use. So if I create a piece and it's showing all these different things and I know that people can actually use it and it's useful to them, I find that really fulfilling. I'm going to go for a two-part answer here. That side of it, but then also the relatable stuff that starts a conversation, like the hand-holding or the kissing in public kind of stuff. When I can see that people are having emotions around the content, that feels very fulfilling as well. But in terms of actual creation, capturing incredible travel destinations is what, is super exciting.
How do you deal with safety when you're traveling? I mean, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but like creating LGBTQ plus like safe travel content. How do you feel about traveling to destinations that might not be legally accepting?
So we haven't travelled to those sort of destinations for that reason. And it's also a really interesting discussion because we would never say to boycott a destination because ultimately there are LGBTQ people that live there and need that kind of visibility and support, but you've got to massively balance that with your own safety. Like we do, every other traveller has to as well. Yeah. So it's always like, it's just such a difficult conversation to have and know what is the right thing to do. Because you want to go and you want to be visible, and if one person sees you in a destination, say a local person sees you and it gives them a bit of hope, then that's a win. But if you turn around the corner and then you get into trouble with somebody else, so basically it's a constant ongoing risk assessment.
Yeah. Well, it's also, say your audience see you there and go, and then they end up in difficulties.
Yeah.
It's not worth the risk of promoting a destination where they're not really safe.
No, yeah. And I think like we're very clear on, say, the writing side, especially on our website, about, you know, what that destination feels like as a whole. Like, did we always feel safe? And there is obviously the caveat, no matter where you go in the world, there's always a risk, but that you just got to decide how high that risk is, which is just, it's such a crap thing to say, isn't it, to be in that position? It's so annoying.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that, like, I mean, traveling as a woman as well, but it's like kind of simple. So I've done a lot like of solo travel, and I specialised in the Middle East. So like, I always want to talk about the Middle East. It's this amazing place where I've like gained so much from it. But also, there are moments where you're like, the harassment was pretty bad. I remember once in like Turkey, and the receptionist at the hotel added me on Facebook afterwards, and I was like,
what?
I was like, this is strange. And he went, oh yeah, I know I wasn't supposed to because it's against policies, but you seemed nice. I thought you wouldn't mind. And I was like, oh, this is slightly terrifying. So you had like access to my room. Like you broke everyone. It's interesting because you want to promote places and you want to explore, but then also you want to be really honest about if it's actually safe or not. Yeah.
Oh yeah. If we felt like it was the right thing to say to people, hold back, we would make that very clear, because otherwise it's just false advertising, for want of a better word. Yeah. And there was actually, I had an interest mentioning Turkey. We met with somebody from a travel company or the tourism board perhaps at a conference, and they said in their marketing they may feature gay couples, but they would not have them holding hands because that is not a realistic experience that they're going to offer. Yeah. I think the travel company said they will welcome you as clients and they will do their best to look after you, and they will, within their company and the people they work with, you're good, but they're not going to put in their marketing things that lead you to believe that you could walk holding hands, because it's just not the case. Yeah. So I liked that. That was like, okay, fair dues.
But you must have to turn down trips like that quite a lot, like where you could be offered to go somewhere if you're not too coupley, which is kind of against the message of your.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm trying to think of an instance, but I don't think we've been, I mean, it would take someone really daft to email us and be like, come to this country where you're going to get stoned. I know that some people are daft. A lot of people are, in fact. Yeah. You do get some crazy emails, but we've never actually been invited to a destination where it would be a problem.
Well, that's a relief for my faith in humanity.
I think I've probably met some people at conferences and they've been like, oh, you could come here. And I'm like, but it is a problem there. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, is it? I'm like, you're representing this place, so maybe you should know a bit more about this. Yeah. I mean, we've been at travel conferences and we've gone to certain destinations and felt a bit snubbed. Oh. But you can never really, it's always subtle, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Speaking of feeling safe, gay cruise, world's largest gay cruise.
Oh my God.
That content did so well.
Mm-hmm. Always. Yeah. Always for the right reason, always for the wrong reasons.
Go.
Like,
please elaborate.
So the So first of all, I have to say, like, this gay cruise we go on, it's the biggest in the world, and for us, it is the most liberating, freeing, fun environment ever. And I've never in my life, no matter what pride I've been to or anything, seen so many people genuinely happy and genuinely friendly. Like, people just saying hello to you in your lift. Everywhere you go, everyone's just friendly. And it's quite sad when you get off because the world seems a bit grey afterwards. Like, oh, no one's being friendly anymore.
It's like holiday blues, but so much worse.
So much worse. So, like, it's just amazing. But I think it's a really easy piece of content for people to attack. Like, people are really interested in it because it's quite a unique thing, and, you know, they've seen these videos, and it is a really safe space. It's also an insane space, but it's also a massive ship. So even though online you see all these crazy parties, you could go on the cruise and never see a party. You know, it's a 5,000 person ship. You can go to the dinners, the shows, sunbathe. You don't have to do that. You can make it your own. We love the parties. That's what you see in our content. But yeah, it does get very popular and wild. First of all, because people are enjoying it, but then people attack the hell out of it, like aggressively. And in all the content we've ever done, that is the worst comments of death threats and people saying they need to like wish for an iceberg to come along, send missiles over to the ship to bomb it because they're all the gays are all in one place together. Just a lot of very aggressive people attacking it and wishing negative things. And then the third one is there's actually quite a lot. There's a group from within the gay community that also attacks it because they assume that the people on the cruise are a certain way. They assume that everyone is like really pretentious or really arrogant or not very nice. And to be honest, before we went on our first one, we were worried about that as well. We thought it might be a bit cliquey or that kind of thing, but we were proven wrong. But you do get a lot of people internally attacking it as well, which is a bit sad because out of all the things you could attack, this is a safe space. Because one of the things that always sticks with me is on one of the cruises, the cruise director or whoever said, open the cruise with a statement and say, how does it feel to be in the majority for a week instead and not be a minority anymore? And it felt amazing. Like, I didn't have to stress, or there was no minute hesitation holding hands, or no minute hesitation on what I'm wearing or what I'm doing or how I'm acting or how I'm speaking, or all that was taken away. And it was just so, you don't realise that you hold all that on you until you get it all taken away.
And how much you're masking every day.
Yeah. And how much you're on alert every day and checking your surroundings every day until it's all taken away.
But that was the thing from the hand-holding reel. It's like the constant vigilance.
Yeah.
That it must be really, really nice to let go of.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for a week.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's why we love it. And yeah, when I get off, I do sometimes have a little cry because I'm like, oh, it's over.
Yeah, I'm bisexual, and you don't realise until you're on dates with someone of the same gender how hypervigilant you need to be. So like, I was on a date and we kissed in a bar, and then like, I forgot that we were sat in a window seat, and like a gang of men came in, and you're just like, it's just so like, you get so tired of that hypervigilance of having to be like visually like threatened all the time. And then
and it makes some people retreat into themselves. Because they're like, oh, I can't bother with this. It's too exhausting. I'll just retreat into myself, and that's not good for you either.
Or it makes, I think, also, I mean, a lot of bisexual people, I think as well, it's like, life is so much easier if I ignore a part of who you are. So it's, I mean, it must be amazing to be on, but like in the experience, great, and then afterwards slam back to earth with hate comments. What do you do with hate comments? Do you get them a lot?
We don't get them that much, to be honest. They are definitely attached to certain bits of content and attached to, you can sort of tell on certain platforms, and suddenly it'll push it to somebody hateful, and then it'll keep on pushing it to more people hateful.
Because the engagement.
Because the engagement. But the way I approach it is, either report if it's a really bad comment and I think it can be damaging for other people to read, so that will be reported, deleted and blocked. If it's like a middle of the road comment, then I do respond, but I respond in a neutral way because they are not getting a rise out of me. Neutral, factual, potentially condescending, but
Politely condescending.
politely explaining to them why they're talking rubbish in the nicest way possible. And because I'm speaking to them, and I do speak to people in a nice way, I think they hate that more, and it winds them up more. I know exactly what I'm doing. I am poking the fire, but you know, I don't want to get. I'm never going to be the person that starts swearing or writing shouty things online. That's just not my approach. And occasionally that approach does work. There's been a couple of conversations that I've had in comments, and people have been like, "Oh, actually, I do see your point," and they're back down. Very rare, very rare.
You hold on to the
I'm
triumph.
I'm holding on to this. But also, I tell these people, and it gets them more annoyed perhaps, but I tell them, thank you for the engagement. This post is doing really well now. I'm like, you are helping this. And I also tell them, you will now see more posts like this on your feed because you are engaging and you're replying to me. And they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, keep going.
You're
You're
like, and? Dot.
Yeah.
Say more.
So, I mean, but I think like you've got to take a bit of entertainment with that, because either take it entertaining, or I know for some people they can't do that and it really will affect them and it will get to them. But I think me and Ben are both quite thick-skinned, and I really don't value these people's thoughts or opinions if they're like that. So they're not going to have an impact on me. But I know that can't be said. The same can't be said for everybody. It has the ability to do that.
And it is so interesting that you've just said, essentially, I'm willing to hear the negative. I'm willing to decide, but I just want to protect other people.
Yeah.
It's like you're... Okay, I'm going to psychoanalyze just off a plane jet lag. But like, you seem to really throw yourself into every challenge in your life. You decide you want to change jobs, you do it. You decide you want to start a travel blog, you do it. You decide, you know, you're going to produce content that gets sometimes negative response, sometimes positive response. You're just going to jump into it. And you are always strong for you, and then, well, strong for other people.
Yeah.
That must be tiring, because I think you take a lot on yourself in terms of business pressure and in terms of personal pressure.
That's fair.
Sorry, I didn't mean
that is totally fair. Because, I do. When I commit to something, it's going to happen. It doesn't really feel like an option. So this has to be successful. I have to achieve X, Y, and Z. And I think, like we talked about burnout, that's why I burnt out last year, because it's just simply not an option. And I will throw everything into whatever I'm going to do and be very decisive about it. Because I feel like, I don't know, I've had so many conversations with friends over the years, or just people in general, that want to do something and they just don't. I'm like, well, why are you talking about it then? I don't ever want to be the person that talks about something that I really want to do and then doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Because I would just get annoyed with myself. So that's kind of the mentality I approach things with.
I get that. It takes a lot of bravery and resiliency. But I think it also goes back to the conversation we were having earlier about, like, there's no career map for this.
No.
Like, you're throwing yourself into something where you don't have, like, a clear path for how to succeed.
Yeah.
And so you need to build that resiliency internally. How much does having Ben and doing this together make you more resilient? Is it harder or is it easy? I mean, at least you know there's two of you where you can...
Yeah, I don't know whether it makes us more resilient, but it does help to know that you have someone to lean on, because, you know, there are moments when you are absolutely exhausted and there's only so much you've got left to fuel you. So I think if it was doing it on my own, it would be different and maybe more lonely at times, but having that support system between ourselves is always going to be helpful. You know, if I am at my wit's end and I'm like, I just need to pass this off to you and I need you to look after it, no questions asked, then that is going to help us keep going and be a bit stronger for longer.
Yeah. A lot of pressure. But
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of pressure.
And we touched on this earlier as well, but like, how do you think brands should step in? So say you're getting hate comments. well, we've worked with brands who have had kind of included LGBTQ plus creators in campaigns, and then there have been negative comments.
Yeah.
How do you think brands should get involved at that point to kind of protect creators, or should they?
Absolutely, they should. Yeah, this is a really real thing because we have worked with brands in the past who put out content with us in, and then in the comments, people have personally attacked us, saying quite awful things about us. And the comments have just been left to sit and not. So brands need to either address the comments, but again, in a professional way. And that can just be, they might just have a standard paragraph that they repost to say, this is not what we stand for, X, Y, Z. A good solid paragraph. So then I can see, as the creator, oh, they've got my back.
Yeah.
Consumers can see the brand has got our back as well, because that's, they want to be seen by consumers in a positive light. Or, of course, report and delete and get rid of them altogether. I'm not a fan. So one of the approaches before has been just switching the comments off altogether. I'm not a fan of that because I think it's a bit at a risk of putting your head in the sand, and also going for the numbers game. That is going to reduce the engagement on that post, and it's going to perform not as well, so that when the powers that be look at all the content for the year or all the campaigns, that LGBTQ campaign might have lower statistics as a result, and now they're not going to invest so much money in that market. So there's a whole...
That's a really interesting approach.
Yeah, there's so much to it in that respect.
Yeah, and I think brands sometimes think knee-jerk, that's the right thing to do, protect, but if it's going to decrease the engagement.
Yeah, you've got to have your business head on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah, my other, view on this is the Dylan Mulvaney piece, you should also check in on the creators.
Yeah.
For Dylan, after being gifted, a custom Bud Light can, so someone, that's definitely been approved internally because her face is on a can. Yeah. To then be left with the death threats with not even are you okay? To me, that was the basics of how a brand or agency should interact.
Or just how a human should interact.
Yeah, how humans, exactly.
Yeah, let's go with that.
It's interesting because you talk about your brand as well. So it's brands, I think, need to see themselves as more human and think about what their values are if they were human. If you were a person in a bar, who would you be?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, would you be in a bar? Where would you be? Yeah. But yeah, so I think brands need to approach things with so much more empathy.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that can be hard when there's multiple layers to it, when you've got a creator, an agent, a PR company, and a brand. I appreciate that can be challenging, but it's not impossible. Just check in.
It's an email.
It's an email. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So are there any specific stigmas within the LGBTQ plus community that you want to challenge with your content?
Yes. So it might not technically be a stigma, but when I say to people gay travel content or LGBTQ travel content, there is this perception of, what are you talking about? What does that even mean? What? There's not a problem. Why are you trying to create a problem? And or create a separation. So then when I start to explain it and I say, well, look, there is a huge checklist of safety issues and dangers and laws and local attitudes that have to be considered before you travel anywhere, that simply some people don't necessarily have to think about. And it does start to twig in some people. And then if I share stories of certain destinations around the world where they've had, I don't know, it was a few years ago, we were in South Africa, which is great, and somebody suggested going to Tanzania. And at the same time, there was, I think, a story of the local police or the local government, basically hunting LGBTQ people in Tanzania. So then I'm but people just will flippantly make the suggestion of, I'll go there. And cause it's not flippant, sorry. They just don't realise the implications of things. So I think...
Because they've never had to think about that for themselves.
Yeah. So I kind of want to maybe not break down a stigma, but create an understanding of what that means. And then also maybe a stigma around gay travel for people that do know it's a thing or a concept, they do have this idea that it is just one big party or one big pride. So certainly in my content, I try and think, well, what else are we sharing? Which is why we have got this adventurous Antarctica content. We do have the crazy party content because that exists, that's real, I love it. We're going to go to it, but we're also going to go on adventures and go on hikes and like have romantic times on beaches in Aruba and things like that, just normal, regular, everyday holidays. It's not just about us needing to go to a pride or needing to go to a party. It's about us being able to experience the world like any other couple would. So that is maybe the stigma I want to, or the concepts I want to move away from and create a better understanding around.
Oh, that's brilliant. And how do you find the difference between like creating content on, I mean, you've got the blog, you've got TikTok, and you've got Instagram primarily.
Yeah.
Do any of the algorithms prioritize your content? Do you find different content does better on different thoughts?
No, it's so, I find it so interesting how each platform differs, because whilst Instagram and TikTok are really good for finding your community, because you can search, the algorithm does a really good job of pushing you to the right people or bringing you the right content. There is sometimes an element of like, you can express yourself, but you have to express yourself differently. And sometimes it feels like there's another level of censorship if you're gay compared to if you're not. Yeah, so I've noticed, it was a thing on TikTok a while ago, and it might sound petty, but you see all these, typically on TikTok, you might see lots of, say, girls in skimpy bikinis doing all this content, but then we've put a speedo on for some beach content and it's got taken down because it's against community guidelines. And it's happened to so many of our peers and friends as well. And a couple of our friends, UK creators, I love them, Charlotte and Natalie, they've had to stop using the hashtag lesbian. They're a lesbian travel blogger couple, but they can't use that hashtag because their content gets flagged. And also for example, the hashtag gay couple on Instagram is banned for violations. So if I accidentally put gay couple hashtag on my content, then it gets censored or not as much reach. So there's a whole, I guess it's sort of systematic-y type
shadow
thing
banning
there.
issue, yeah.
With anything sort of LGBTQ content being dragged into something, I guess, sexual ultimately, and that's why it's breaking community guidelines, but just being an LGBTQ person doesn't make your content inherently sexual.
Yeah. And also, how are you supposed to find your audience if the hashtags you're using are getting banned? Yeah. And the whole point is you also want to be like a positive role model in the community.
So I think there's maybe a piece of work that some of these platforms need to do to stop that being the case, because I've also seen it recently on TikTok. Some of the hashtag, gay, whatever it might be, are now greyed out and you can't click on them all of a sudden. I've noticed that in the past couple of months. So there is an underlying censorship that needs to be managed in some way.
Yeah. So I think you're right as well. There's a real hypocrisy about the amount of content that is young women that is I report stuff on TikTok all the time and I'm like, this is sexually inappropriate.
Yeah.
And
also I think there's flaws in sometimes how things get reported, because people can just there's a lot of things that people can just write and get away with it, and there's so many comments that I've reported that are blatantly homophobic, and sometimes you get the message, we've not had time to review this, so basically they're going to allow it. So there's definitely some work to be done there.
So do you find, it sounds like both have issues with banning reach or limiting reach. Do you find either platform's better or?
I think both similar in that respect. I think on the whole, we do actually get much fewer negative or hate comments than I think quite a lot of people do. I think we're very lucky in that respect. Yeah. I would say a vast proportion, just very positive, very uplifted, very good. But if it's going to go bad, it does go worse on TikTok. And I think maybe because I'm not really sure why, but those are the stats.
I think TikTok's algorithm is still a little bit more content first rather than creator first. I think like on Instagram with Reels, you still at least get definitely put out to your audience.
Yeah.
Because I feel like on TikTok, you don't necessarily reach your audience.
Yeah.
Whereas you might reach someone who engages with hateful content and then
Yeah.
it spirals.
Yeah, it really does spiral. But then if you do take a step back and you look at the numbers, like for the video you mentioned on Instagram, the hand holding, it did get viewed like I think maybe 1.2 million times. And actually, if you did do a deep dive into the numbers, you would find it's a very small percentage. It's a lot of individual comments, but it is a small percentage. But it is hard. It is hard not for them to be the ones that stick in your mind. Unfortunately, that's just how we're wired up, isn't it? Like we're wired to
remember the
negatives.
Do you do any community management where you like block the comments based like that contain certain words?
Yeah, so I have done that, and that is a useful tool. And I think that is something that everyone, individual or content creator, should look at doing, because if you know that if someone makes a comment about X, Y, Z and it's going to trigger you or have a negative impact, then use that tool to basically stop comments appearing if they say certain words.
Yeah. And then the person who comments thinks they're there and just being ignored, which is like the ultimate troll.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there may be other people looking at starting content businesses with their partner. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to people, like couples or people, married people who are looking at doing this together so they can maintain a degree of like healthiness in their lives as well as business?
I mean, I can't speak for all, but I think the key things are you need to be on the same page for something like this, because this is all encompassing. So you can't go into it lightly. Yeah. And I think that's why for us it's gone quite well. Like not just with this, but like for any big changes in life, like I mentioned, 2011, quit our jobs, went off. We were on the same page, came back, did it again. We were on the same page. So I think you've got to be on the same page, because this is not just taking a new job. This is taking a new life. And then I think it's probably very important to keep talking and communicating, because things will change. So like you can say, oh, we're going to go on all these trips. It's going to be amazing. That's what you perceive it to be. But the reality might be quite different. So it is important to like check back in and say like, is this getting too much? Is it taking away? Is it enhancing? Where are we at? Because you can get swept away.
How often do you do those check-ins?
We're starting to. Because like I said, last year was the first year self-employed. So we went crazy. And we were barely home last year, and it did take its toll. And it's just sometimes a difficult thing to talk about with people, because they just see all this glossy stuff online and they're like, well, you've got the best life ever. And they don't see that I'm like stressing and pressuring. And I don't think we've been on we've not been on a holiday since before COVID. And by that, I mean switching off, not working, and sitting by a pool and doing nothing. We've not done that since before COVID. We've been to all these crazy destinations and had such a good time, but it has always got deliverables or a contract or whatever. And I love it. Do not get me wrong, I love it. But it is important to switch off. Yeah. And I think that is something I need to do more this year. Yeah. Switch off.
A bit more balance.
Yeah.
Just like intentional time. Yeah. Because that's over 4 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know it's like you had a travel channel and COVID paused it. So now you're like on it. And the financial pressure in the first year must be insane, but.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sanity break.
Keep smiling through it. I know, like, I think last Pride season we were like coming down to London for a job, and I just like burst into tears on the train because I just needed to like let out for a minute because I was just so tired. I was just like, I haven't got this in me anymore. I need to have a break. But it's Pride season, and we need to keep going.
Also, you need to be like so positive during Pride season. It must take a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of things that we do are people facing, and I think like people see all the content, but they forget about all the networking events we go to, and we go into different conferences all around the world to network and try and set up meetings with PR and tourism boards and all those kind of businessy things around the edge that people don't see to make it a reality.
Yeah.
Are also on top of the workload. Like in a few weeks, we're going to LA for a huge travel conference, and we're literally flying to LA, staying there for 5 nights and coming back. And it's every day is going to be part of the travel conference, which would be cool.
It's cool, but it is being on all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself.
Yeah.
So kind of nicely leading on, in 5 years, where do you see this going?
So for me, I feel like there's lots of different areas this could branch out onto that are still related to the core of it. And I feel like right now we've got a solid core of LGBTQ travel and lifestyle, social media, and website. The website, I think we could get more out of, but there is other aspects of, like, I've done a couple of jobs of being in like an LGBTQ speaker or being on panels, and I want to develop that side of things because I enjoy that, and it's an educational piece.
Yeah.
And then I also potentially want to think about, well, we've got all this travel content and all this information. Could that translate into running group trips or something like that? So building out new areas of the business, but being very aware there's still only 2 of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I want to see natural progressions onto new things.
Yeah, there's a trend now. Well, I don't know if it's a trend, but like I'm really living for the shift of travel creators running trips for their audience. Cause it's huge. I mean, there's huge demand for it. Someone you trust, you know, I think it could be quite a nice experience.
Yeah, we've done it before. We used to do a Croatia gay sailing trip.
Cool.
And we really enjoyed that. I think the difficulty with it is you've got to look at how many hours work you have to do to market it and create assets, as well as the actual trip itself versus what commission that you're getting. Because if you look at the contract or the deal that you might have with that travel company and say that you're going to get, I don't know, for a week, £2,000 commission, and on the face of it, £2,000 for a week, but then you forget that maybe you've done 40, 50, 60 hours of work or more 12 months prior to do all the marketing and to get those bums on seats. And then actually, if you start looking at the wage per hour, so you've got a, business head again.
And then also, while you're on that trip, you're
not earning.
On all the time. Yeah, you're not earning. So again, that's £2,000 for that week.
So there's
it's tough to scale
an approach to it that I think I need to try and look at to better understand how that could work.
So interesting. I think it was really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Sean, anything you
want to add? So I'm really keen to make the Globetrotter Guys a supportive community, and I always want to have that personal connection. So if you want advice or tips or just have a question, my DMs are always open.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it, and thank you for watching. If you want to subscribe, you can see more of these creator chats. Or if you want to comment any questions, feel free to do so.